high rate, and it'll take longer to come down and probably will go up over the next week because of the fact there's a delay between people going into hospital and some people sadly dying. I'll now hand over to Sir Patrick for some comments about the new variant.
Thank you very much. So there are three major variants of potential concern. The one that was first identified in the UK, one that was identified in South Africa, and one that was identified in Brazil, three countries, all of which sequence a lot and so pick these things up early. I want to talk about the UK one because it's a common variant now comprising a significant number of the cases. The first thing to say is that we have confidence that this is spreading more easily than the old variant. So we think it transmits between 30 and 70% more easily than the old variant. We don't yet understand why that is the case. It doesn't have a difference in terms of age distribution. So there's no preferential age. It can affect anybody at any age, similarly to the original variant, the original virus. But I do want to say a word about severity and mortality. When we look at data from hospitals, so patients who are in hospital with the virus, the outcomes for those with the original virus or the new variant look the same. So there's no real evidence of an increase in mortality for those in hospital. However, when data are looked at in terms of those who've been tested positive, so anyone who's tested positive, there is evidence that there's an increased risk for those who have the new variant compared to the old virus. Now, that evidence is not yet strong. It's a series of different bits of information that come together to support that. And I want to put it into context as to what it might mean, but stressing that these data are currently uncertain and we don't have a very good estimate of the precise nature or indeed whether it is overall increased, but it looks like it is. And I want to give some context. If you took somebody in their 60s, a man in their 60s, the average risk is that for 1,000 people who got infected, roughly 10 would be expected to unfortunately die with the virus. With the new variant, for 1,000 people infected, roughly 13 or 14 people might be expected to die. So that's the sort of change for that sort of age group, an increase from 10 to 13 or 14 out of 1,000. And you will see that across the different age groups as well, a similar sort of relative increase in the risk. So that's what we're looking at, but I want to stress that there's a lot of uncertainty around these numbers and we need more work to get a precise handle on it, but it obviously is of concern that this has an increase in mortality as well as an increase in transmissibility as it appears of today. Let me say also a word about vaccines. The first is that there's increasing evidence from laboratory studies that the variant in the UK will be susceptible to the vaccines. And so I think that's increasing from a number of different sources, including looking at sera, blood taken from people who've been vaccinated, showing that it can neutralize the new virus. And indeed, just 2 days ago, one of the manufacturers of one of the vaccines, the Pfizer-BioNTech team, the BioNTech team actually, did studies showing that there was very good neutralization of the variant virus by the blood taken from patients, people who've been vaccinated. So I think there's increasing confidence coupled with, I think, what is a very important clinical observation, which is that individuals who've been infected previously and have generated antibodies appear to be equally protected against original virus and new variant. So there's good clinical data as well to support the idea that the vaccines should be as effective against this virus as against the old one, or thereabouts. So I think good news on the vaccine front. And then finally, a word just about the South African and Brazilian variants. We know less about how much more transmissible they are. We are more concerned that they have certain features which means they might be less susceptible to vaccines We will see a lot of information coming out from different laboratories. It's very difficult to compare between laboratories on this data, and we need to get more clinical information to understand how much of an effect, if any, there is on the vaccine. But they are definitely of more concern than the one in the UK at the moment, and we need to keep looking at it and studying this very carefully, which is what's going on in laboratories across the world at the moment.
Thanks very much, Patrick, and thank you, Chris. Let's go to Tracy in Lanarkshire.